historical aspect, it goes to 600 BC in Greece. That is when a particular type of iron was discovered in a place which was called as Magnesia. Magnesia, they discovered an ore which is kind of again a variation of iron ore. It was called as magnetite, and the configuration was Fe3O4. That was the ore which was discovered in Magnesia in 600 BC. It is not exact year, it may be few years here and there. So it was approximately during that period this ore was discovered at this place which was called as Magnesia. And this place, if you look into the modern maps, it comes in the northern portion of today's Greece. So that place, they discovered this ore. It had a property of attracting the iron filings or small pieces of iron. So they called after the place, the material was called as magnet. It was called as a magnet. So this was discovered. It was a naturally occurring magnet and it was a permanent magnet. So that was the history then. Is it going to attract only iron? No, it is going to be iron, cobalt. It is also the nickel. So it is going to attract these things, and some more materials are also there, like it is going to attract partially tin, and even some bits of aluminum are also going to be very negligibly attracted, because ultimately that paramagnetism, ferromagnetism and diamagnetism, it used to belong to that thing. But that is gone now. So for now what we are going to see here is this material which was labeled as magnet, it has the property of attracting iron, cobalt and nickel. So that is the things. Then what are the properties of a magnet? What are the things that can be done using a magnet? The first property is attraction. What is that attraction? It attracts small pieces of iron, cobalt and nickel. So what is the main use of that thing? If you have got some materials and if you want to separate out what type of metal it is, then this property of that magnetic material we are going to utilize so that we will be able to separate out the magnetic substances, which are these three, from those substances which are non-magnetic. Like if we have some bits of copper and iron, if we want to separate them out, what we are going to do there is we are going to use a magnet. When the magnet goes near to that material, iron pieces will be attracted by the magnet, copper will remain there. So we are able to separate the magnetic substances from non-magnetic substances. That's the first property. Then the second property is direction. So somewhere in 13th century, somewhere in China, a person discovered that the magnet always, if it is suspended, it is going to get aligned into the north-south direction. When that happens, they started using the magnet for taking the direction for the ships, for navigation. Because before that, the ships used to run, but they used to take the directions with the help of stars. And they used to look at one particular star that was called as North Star, and they used to take the directions for the ships. But later on, after 13th century, when this material magnet was discovered that it is able to give the direction, it always points towards the north pole of the earth, they realized that they can use this material for navigation purpose. So this is another main property or major property of our magnet, that is magnetic substances. Then third one, you all know, like poles attract. So like poles repel and unlike poles attracts. So if we have got two magnets and if we take the two north poles in front of each other, they are going to repel each other. But if we take one north pole and one south pole, they will attract each other. The same thing goes with the south poles. If we take two south poles together, they are going to repel each other. And if we take one north pole and one south pole, they are going to attract each other. Then that is about the poles. Then the next thing is, we have already discussed in chapter 4, they never exist. The magnets, the magnetic poles. They always exist in pairs. We never get a single north pole separately. We will never find a single south pole separately. We will always find them in pairs. Wherever we have a north pole, at some distance from that north pole, there will always be a south pole. So we cannot have a single north pole separately. We cannot have a single south pole separately. It is always a north pole and south pole. Always they remain together. We never find a magnetic monopole. We can find an electric monopole as a positive charge separated or a negative charge separated, but we never are going to find a magnetic pole which is a single unit. They always exist in the form of pairs. That is another property of the magnetic things. So this was the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, then there is the fifth one, that is magnetic induction. Now, this is slightly different from what we are going to study in chapter 6, that is electromagnetic induction, that is chapter 6. But for now, we are going to see only the magnetic induction. This is again a common thing which you may have observed at your home. If you have a magnet with you, if you take a pin near that magnet and if you take another pin to near near to the first pin, that first pin is going to attract the second pin. Why that happens is because when the first pin is near the magnet or it is attached to the magnet, some property of that magnet will be acquired by the first pin, and it also behaves like a magnet for a short duration of time. So that property, when it is acquired by the pin, it is going to behave as a magnet for a small duration of time, and it has got very small intensity also. So when we see that, what is happening there is the magnetic property is acquired by the pin due to this property that is called as magnetic induction. So one material will give its own property to another material. That situation is called as magnetic induction. Slightly more advanced thing is that electromagnetic induction, which we are going to see in chapter 6. So what is magnetic field? It is the region near a magnet where the materials, the magnetic materials like iron, cobalt and nickel are going to be attracted, or alternatively it is the region near a magnet where another magnet is going to experience a force of attraction or repulsion. So that is the magnetic field. Then uniform magnetic field and non-uniform magnetic field. So if we have a uniform magnetic field, that means the magnetic field, the magnitude and direction is same in all the places in that region. Such a region will be called as a region of uniform magnetic field. Alternatively, what we can have here is we can have a region where either the magnitude of the magnetic field or the direction of magnetic field is changing. Such a region will be called as a region of non-uniform magnetic field. So uniform means magnitude and direction should remain same. Non-uniform means either the magnitude or the direction or both can change the value, both can change. In such situations, we are going to call it as non-uniform magnetic field. Then, what are magnetic poles? A pole, it can be a north pole or it can be a south pole. These are the regions where the magnetic field is concentrated. I'll just draw a diagram. So let us say we have a bar magnet. Bar magnet means it will be usually a rectangular shaped magnet, and one side let us say there is the north pole, the other side let us say there is the south pole. And if we look into how the field behaves, we are going to see here is the region which is near the north pole and the region which is near the south pole, the intensity of the magnetic field is going to be strong, and the region which is somewhere in between the north pole and the south pole, in this region the intensity of the magnetic field is going to be less. So the regions where the magnetic field or the magnetic intensity seems like it is concentrated or it is strong, that region will be the region of magnetic pole. It can be a north pole or it can be a south pole. Then magnetic axis, that is another term which we are going to come across. We are going to, when we discuss that the Earth's magnetism, so there we are going to come across this word magnetic axis. Axis means the straight line which passes through the center. So if I draw a line like this, so this line is going to be called as the axis of this magnet. Similarly, just like we had for the electric dipole, we will have an axis and then we will have an equator. So this is the magnetic equator, or you can say the equatorial line, or you can also call it as the equatorial plane, because it is perpendicular. The length, the line which passes across the length of the magnet through its center is called as the axis of a magnet, and a line or the plane which is perpendicular to the axis, that plane or the line is called as the equatorial line or the equatorial plane of the magnet. The magnetic length is the distance between the apparent location of the north pole and the south pole. It is slightly less than the geometrical length. So what we observe here, if we have a real bar magnet with us, instead of the north pole appearing here, it may seem like the north pole is somewhere inside, where we have written the letter again. The north pole is located at that position. Similarly, the south pole is not at this end, it is slightly on the inside of that magnet. Now if I want to measure, I am going to measure only this much of length. So this length, L dash, that length is going to be the magnetic length. Then the distance between the apparent position of the poles, apparent positions of the poles, that distance is called as the magnetic length. So this is the magnetic length. This we are going to call it as the geometrical length of the magnet. And what in reality is probably found here is, if we calculate the magnetic length divided by geometric length, it is going to be 0.84. It is again based on an experimental result. It may be slightly more or less. It is 0.84. So if we have a 10 centimeter long magnet, then the magnetic length will be slightly less. So we can say if the total length of the magnet is 10 centimeter, it will be 0.8 less from this side, 0.8 less from this side, and the actual magnetic length will be 8.4 centimeter. That is just an example. So the magnetic length is always less than the geometric length. So Coulomb's law for magnetism. What we used to have in chapter 1, it was F is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by R square. The equation is going to be same for the magnetic field. There will be a small change that Q1 is going to now become Qm1, that is the magnetic charge 1. Then there is a magnetic charge 2, Qm2 divided by R square, that will remain same, and this is going to become the magnetic force. There it was the electrostatic force, we can use it as Fe. Here we are going to have it as Fb, and we are going to say that this is proportional. The magnetic force of attraction or repulsion between two magnetic charges is directly proportional to the product of charges and inversely proportional to the square of the distance. The statement remains same. The only difference is instead of having the electric charges, we are going to have the magnetic charges. Fb equals, again the same thing, Qm1, Qm2 divided by R square. This thing is same. The value is, that is mu naught by 4 pi. So this is the constant for the magnetic force. Then again, we know the value of this thing is going to become directly 10 to the power of -7. That is going to be Tesla meter per ampere is going to be measured with this units. Then what is that mu naught? It is the permeability of the free space. Current can be also measured as Henry per meter. Now this Henry is a different unit which we are going to come across in chapter 6. Just like we used to have the Farad. For that epsilon naught, similarly, we are going to have this Henry. Farad is related to capacitance, Henry is related to inductance, which we are going to study in chapter 6. So these are the units for that permeability.